Oh, you have the jacket.
Yeah, I thought I'd just pull it in and talk about rather than wear it because it's pretty warm here
Oh
today.
yeah, no, that's totally cool. It's pretty funny because Jack and I were watching one of the old Global Underground documentary videos that they used to do, and we were thinking you just had this jacket for the cover, but in all of the video clips, you're also wearing the jacket traveling around Europe.
The photographer said, "Bring some of your clothes to the shoot, and we'll just see what looks good. Whatever, we'll work it out." So I didn't have a hired wardrobe or anything. It wasn't L.A. Hollywood, movie set style. It was, you're the DJ. That's you. That's your clothes. Let's do this.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But it's an iconic new breed cover, and a lot of your fans always bring up how awesome that jacket is.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, so let's we have some questions about the album, and we're gonna get right into it. So in the album notes, you kind of explained yourself what this new series was about. What you said was it's a new group of DJs who've been around but not really yet made it through to the Premier League. But these are DJs who are ready to step in and take control. For us, this is about not having a set formula, not doing what's been done before. We've got no safety net.
Yep, correct. And this was at a time. My album came out in at the turn of the millennium in 2000, but the thought process and the work behind it and putting it together was at the late 90s in 99. And I think there was a big shift in trend of music from well, obviously from house music to progressive house music, and then it went to trance music, and through the 90s, there was quite a big progressive trance sound. But as the millennium was approaching, there was this new style of cooler, fresher sounds as producers and music studios and equipment was evolving. So does always the sound. You get new equipment, you get new programs, you get new sounds, new influences, and music style and sound changes. And that's what I love about the music that we play. It's called progressive, but it actually progresses in its change. It's always evolving. And at the end of the 90s, going into the time when I was looking for music to compile for the album, it was a sound that just seemed fresh, and it felt like the turn of the the next decade of this is where it's going. This is a new. There was it was the perfect timing, not just for me to have the album come out on such an iconic global underground company, but the timing was right for a fresh sound as well. And I just think that with this album, if all the stars and planets aligned for all that to just happen at the right time.
So one thing I'm wondering is that you were chosen to debut this series, but Global Underground could have chosen any one of the new breed artists to be the first release. Why were you chosen?
I think that's more of a question for them than me. But from what I understand, they had such a big following, like you said already, with their international, worldwide, global underground series. That all those DJs were superstar DJs, and I think before they started this series, they actually put out a bit of a in the sleeve notes of the albums. They used to put cards where you could reply to be on the mailing list, and I think they actually started asking people what DJs would you like to see in a as a future album. Who would you like us to consider? And apparently, from what they received back from these cards, my name popped up quite a lot. So I was someone that they were looking at anyway and had their eye on. But I think with the confirmation from the public telling them that hey, we'd like to see this guy as a future global underground DJ. I think they just made it the choice to choose me and roll with that for the first one.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's not taking away from the other guys because
Oh
they're
no,
they're
yeah.
all amazing. But someone has to be the first, and there can only be one. So, yeah, that was me.
Yeah, totally. And you were kind of saying how progressive house in its nature is progressive. This mix came out into the mix came out in 2000. The idea was around 1999. There's a lot of new technology like CDJs and Pro Tools coming out for editing after recording the mix. But you recorded the mix on a pair of Technics, or so I've read.
No, well, I used some of the tracks I couldn't get on. I couldn't track the label down to get digital files. So on a couple of the tracks on the album were actually off the vinyl. So I used a combination of turntables, CDJs, Pioneer, and recorded the mix into Logic, the program with the computer, and used Logic to sequence it. But in some areas, I actually did do some of the sequencing live as a mix, and then we kind of edited the mix together through Logic, and then added some effects and special touches, which was due to a guy called Andy Page, who at the time I worked with to create this album, who was also living in Melbourne, Australia. I was actually living in the UK, but when I put this album together, I did it in Melbourne because that's where I was at the time when it was time to record the mix. So
It's really cool. One thing I'm wondering is the one thing that's different about Nubreed than the City series is there isn't necessarily a city attached to the album release. And often the city would play some sort of role, even though they had unbridled, like, creative freedom to pick whatever records they want. The city kind of influenced the album in some way. How did you give this mix, a global underground identity without it having a city?
well, I think what gives it the global underground identity is the style of music, and the way they market their albums. But without it being about a city or based on a city, this is probably what made this series even more special for these new DJs breaking through. It was really about them and showcasing who they are, their sound, and what they do in a global underground style, you might want to say. But really, it was your name, New Breed, your sound, your style. Obviously they're not going to work with someone who doesn't fit the style of the album and music that they portray. But it was more based on you and not the location. And even with the other guys, the cities were as a big part of it. That's what made some of the artwork quite iconic, like Sasha with the San Francisco, the bridge, all these iconic landmarks and DJs, and the whole concept of a DJ in a city and capturing that moment and putting it onto a disc. In the 90s, when we didn't have all the Mixcloud and streaming and SoundCloud, and it was, people actually wanted to buy the album, look at the photos, read the sleeve notes, and hear the music, the kind of old school way, which I still think is the best way to really appreciate music. Because all the digital stuff it's here today, gone tomorrow. It doesn't really have its value. It's not a physical product. It's just a file. So, look, not being based on a city, it really put more emphasis on the person, the DJ, the artist, and your mix and what style of music you were playing. You wanted to play.
It's really cool. So one thing with this Nubreed, it sounds like all the DJs were really on the forefront of the sound that they mixed. Can you explain to us how at the time, because I'm sure it's different than now, how you were doing your music discovery and how you were coming into contact with these tracks that were really underground and you were maybe playing for audiences for the first time?
Well, basically, as a DJ that is always in hunt for new music and good music, it's my job to source, every week this music. And the way that happens and still happens, but back then, I would go to 3 or 4 different record shops in the UK. If I couldn't go to them in person, I would mail order from 2 or 3 stores weekly. So I made sure I was getting the best of the new releases, imports, German, Italian, American stuff, because you weren't on that mailing list. And also, as a day job, I worked at DMC and Stress Records label, which was part of the Mixmag office. So I was surrounded by music day in, day out. And I was on a lot of mailing lists as well because um, labels wanted, the DJs that were playing at the right gigs to have the upfront copies of tracks so that you could help break the record. That you were sent promos, test pressings, acetates. So I was at that level where I had a lot of music coming to me already, and via the exclusive list that I was on that was sending me one of 20 copies, up front, plus the online and shopping in the actual shops, I kind of had my finger on the pulse, and also being based as a day job at DMC Mixmag, it was music 24/7. So I knew, a lot of, I was right in the middle of it all.
It's really cool.
And these days, as far as I know it's more digital. Like I was saying, it's more digital. So I probably get sent about 3,000 tracks a month. I probably listen, 150 to 200 tracks a day, and it's my job to just filter through and work out what I like, what I don't, what works for me, and that's how I keep on top of it.
So, track selection is one thing, but then, we were interviewing Paul Oakenfold, and he kept talking about the arrangement and the key of the mix as well. And as I've learned more about your style of mixing and key is kind of a defining characteristic of your sound. Can you kind of explain to us how you developed an ear for this and how this kind of became part of your style?
Yeah, sure. Well, for me, I as a kid through school studied music theory, and I could read and write music, and I grew up playing the drums, and my father was a keyboard player and a musician in a band. So I had that musical, when I say musical, like the actual theory of music background in my house. And for me, it seemed natural to apply that understanding of music, of a note and a key or a chord, which is a group of notes, and apply that mentality to the key of a record playing. So that not only are you mixing the beats in time to get the beats in time, you're also mixing the key, making the sounds work well that fit together. And I just started mixing in key. I never heard of it from anywhere before. It was something that just made sense to me. And so I used to write the BPM with a sticker on my records, and also the key, and also the chord, because the chord would give me options around the key, which is called harmonies. And then I worked out at 0% on the turntable, let's say a track's in C minor. If you pitch it up by 4%, it would go to the next note, which is C sharp. So it was learning to DJ this way and with this mindset over the last 34 years that's made my style of DJing and mixing become the way it is. People say, oh, when you mix, it's more seamless. Things just fit well together. Well, that's due to the keys.
I was watching some of your previous interviews on YouTube, and it sounded like you had a really cool opportunity as a resident. I'm not sure if this is correct, but it may be at the Metro in Australia. But you had the opportunity to open for DJs touring. What were some, what opportunities did this provide you? But also, what were some, who were some of the DJs that influenced your style the most?
Well, I'll say the top three for me were Sasha Digweed, John Digweed, and Dave Seaman. But I kind of, when I was at the age of 18, I was playing all the main clubs in Australia. So I did have that opportunity of the opening slot before the international DJs. So it was good to strike up that relationship on a personal level with these guys as well. And also when they toured around Australia, because they liked the way I opened for them, they would request that I play the slot on the whole tour. So that was great, because that meant you get to spend time with the guys when not at the gig, just hanging out, which is always the best way to meet people properly when you're not in a club and it's too loud and you can't actually talk to them. Plus, everyone else wants to say hello. So, it was good to, at an early stage, get to meet these legendary guys and have a bit of personal time and learn from them. Learn by watching them and also listening to them. But just hanging out with them and seeing the lifestyle. This is what they do, and it's like, this is cool. I want to do this too. So that's why when I was 21, I decided to move to the UK. I made the move from Australia because I figured I needed to go to the next step in my career where I was doing it as much as I could do in my own country, but to make it on the international circuit, you had to kind of be there. So people aren't going to book a DJ from Australia that they've never heard of before. One, they just don't do that until it's so far. The flights are so expensive. So I was like, I'm going to throw myself into their pool and see what happens. And as it turned out, it was great.
It definitely sounds like it all worked out. One of the more touching part of the mix to me is that the album notes actually open up with your father's history and how he came from Sicily to Melbourne, and he was in a band and he had his own music dreams. Did this give you some confidence when, you're a young guy making a huge move? Did some of these parallels in your dad's life and experience give you some confidence to go and make this big move and follow your dream?
Honestly, probably not. If anything, my family didn't want me to go because my dad had his own business and it was a very successful company making tapware. And as far as he was concerned, and I was working for him, I'm the son, you're supposed to take over the family business. And,
oh, wow.
Everything we've built up is for you to continue and the whole, family, which is huge. But, how do you not break your parents' hearts and say, thank you, I love you, and I love what you're trying to do for me, but this is not what I want to do. My heart is in this, and I want to be a DJ, and I love music. So at first it was actually hard for them to accept that, okay, I want to leave that behind and make a go of it overseas. But it took, years later, once I started, it all started to kind of happen. They were just happy for me that I was doing what I loved and that I was doing what I wanted to do,
Yeah, definitely. And one question
you got to follow your dream, follow your heart, always.
Yeah, I think it's a great lesson for, a lot of up-and-coming DJs and viewers our age to follow their dreams. One thing I wanted to ask was, you're going to England, you're a DJ, it's the coolest thing. But I imagine culturally that transition from moving to Australia to England might be a little difficult. Can you talk about those first couple years?
It was, especially coming from a sunny country like Australia, moving to England where it's doom and gloom, rainy and grey and cold. I think at the age of 21, I was so focused on what I was going there for. I don't care if it was 20 below every day and snow everywhere. My focus and my drive and vision of what I was going for was so strong that nothing else mattered, It was all about, this is what I'm here for, this is what I'm here to do, this is what I want. And that's all everything was all based on, focused on that. Nothing else mattered, you know what I mean? So
definitely. In those initial years, what were, and I know I'm taking you back down memory lane, but what were some key moments or opportunities or relationships you built that were really key in your ascension?
Yeah, well, the first one was getting a job at DMC and the record label Stress Records. That opened the doors to me to learn a lot about the whole music industry in the UK because, as I said, Mixmag was there. They had a record label, they had a magazine, they had studios there. So it was a melting pot of a lot of different things that was a good way for me to learn a lot about a lot of different parts of the industry that I wasn't necessarily so familiar with. It was the first time I had really seen proper recording studios. So that's when I started the Free Fall project with my partner, Alan Bremner, and started the studio career. Also, another key moment was getting signed to the Renaissance DJ agency. Renaissance was, still is, a legendary brand that does amazing events, parties, and it was the birth of the Sasha and Digweed iconic album. Was before Global Underground. The triple album, which is still to this date probably recognised as the holy birth of all DJ mix albums ever. So being on the books with them, they were my DJ agency and management, and so that opened doors with some gigs, which led me to playing a lot of the better venues around the UK. And then towards later 90s, I think more international gigs started opening up, and that's kind of when I started getting on the radar of the Global Underground guys. James Todd and Andy were, noticing me more as my name was kind of coming up, and then that relationship started with them, which led me to 2000 when the album came out, and it all kind of just skyrocketed from there, really.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit, and this will kind of wrap up our discussion on the Nubreed, but what kind of impact does an album like this have on your career? Because at the time, the scene, it was much more difficult. You couldn't go on YouTube and type in a mix from somewhere in the country, and this music, underground music, was just a lot more inaccessible. But for you to have the opportunity to go on a global underground that is distributed around the world, what kind of impact did this have on your career?
It was huge. I mean, like you said, there wasn't the internet wasn't as big as it is now with regards to discovering music and artists. There was no Facebook, there was no Instagram. It wasn't an instant, here, check out this person, and all the links are there. So they spent a lot of money on marketing and advertising the old-fashioned way, where it was billboards, posters, magazines, lots of one-on-one interviews, lots of one-on-one gigs and tours in individual cities and countries around the world, where you had to build up your following because people saw you, or they wanted to hear you, or they read about you, or they saw a flyer or a poster. So it was done the old school way, because that was the only way really back then. It wasn't a digital format. It was more of a physical thing. You had to put the hours in and promote. And that we based tours around promoting albums in certain parts of the world. And, for me, I think having that real connection with people and clubbers and them learning about you by actually seeing you live instead of on a video or a 30-minute snippet on a story page, I think that carries more weight, because it was more, not that the new stuff's not real, but it's more real when you're there in person, and it's, hey, this guy's playing and we're watching him. That's real, not I'm looking at a screen, So I'm not saying that that's not real, but it doesn't have the same depth. So, yeah, and the first time I was driving my car in England down one of the motorways, and I saw one of those big billboards of my album cover, and the person in the car said, "Hey, dude, have a look at that." And I'm like, I almost crashed the car. I was like, what? I was so blown away by the size of it. I was like, no way, that's me. I actually almost hit the person in front of me.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure that's like a once in a lifetime experience to see yourself on a billboard for the first time.
Just a level of marketing and promotion that was needed to be done on every project, and it was huge. Yeah, it made a world of difference.
I'm sure at that point in your career and for the years afterward, life can start moving really fast. You have 200 flights a year, spending a lot of your time traveling. Life gets moving crazy fast for superstar DJs. And we were talking about this before on our prep call, but you were involved in a very serious car crash some years ago where you were kind of forced to slow down, really slow down. Stop completely. What did that part of your life and that journey teach you? Not about music or anything, but like about yourself and your life.
Yeah, look, I often tell people it was the worst thing, but also at the time the best thing that could have happened to me, because life was getting a bit out of control. It was too much. I love touring. I love Loved the job, but it became so fast and so busy. It kind of, like I said, it kind of got out of control, and there's too many parties, and you're on the road 3, 4, 5 days a week, home for 2 days, and then off again, and it just wears you down. It's not that you don't love touring and playing. I love that more than anything, but it's just the travel and the time it takes to get to each place, and that's what really ties you down. So, yeah, I had a very bad accident. I broke both my legs, my arm, and my back, and I was in a wheelchair for 5 months. I had to learn how to walk again. This is 5 years ago, and it really makes you stop because it's like, okay, everything that is, don't worry about it. You just need to worry about the basics, which is breathe, rebuild, simple things, walk, and I think that just simplifies life a little bit more. And not that you don't appreciate it before, but it makes you appreciate things even more, and makes you start thinking of what's most important to you, and what you value, and how you want to spend the time that you have, and how you want to manage that time with how much do I want to be away, how much do I want to be at home with my family. And I think it just helps you get a better balance, which is not easy to do when you've just been chasing that dream and things go and it's like, yep, let's do everything, and you go from there to there, and it's you just need to learn to just keep cool,
Yeah.
do a little bit of everything, but balance, have a good balance, have a good life, be healthier, rest when you need to rest, don't overdo everything because you have to do everything. And I think it also helps with that mindset, the fact that I've been DJing for 34 years and I've done a lot of the things that I wanted to do, where I can go, well, yeah, I've been there, seen it, I still love it, but I'll do it in a calmer way, So it's better for me, better for my health.
It's cool as you navigate as a DJ how there can be different phases and eras of your career, because DJing is something that you can do as long as you can source the music and use the decks. So it's cool to hear that your career can adjust and evolve and change as time passes. You talked about, it's interesting with the coronavirus pandemic, the entire industry was forced to slow down. And now it seems like in certain areas of the world, clubbing is kind of coming back, but at large, everything is still pretty slow. But one thing that I think is so cool is how you use the pandemic to really, in my eyes, become closer with your fan base. And a lot of this is through your live mixes and the Anthony Pappa fan club on Facebook. It's one of the coolest groups I've found on Facebook. You spend a lot of time being really open with your fan base, answering their questions, and even sharing your mixing techniques with them. How did this page kind of start up? And can you talk about the intimate relationship you share with your fan base?
I think COVID kind of made more online things possible and happen, because there was no other way. I'd never done a live stream in my life until a year and a half ago, and I've probably done about 100 of them now. I actually just did one on Saturday night. Basically, the fan page was something I had, but I was never really a big social media person. I don't love it. I understand that how the importance of it and how relevant it is to what you do, especially when we can't travel and do things. It's like, well, this internet, these social media apps are the only way I can really connect with people at the moment. So I just put everything into it, and I feel like I'm an open book. I've got nothing to hide, and like I said, with my experience, I've done it, been there, done it, and I'm always happy to share the love, the passion, the knowledge, and I do put a lot of time into it, because I feel that if people want to talk to me, and if possible, I try and reply and talk back to them. It's not easy to keep in touch with everyone, but I work on it daily, so it never really becomes too big a job, because you keep on top of it. And I think thank you for the compliment, saying that it's one of the groups that you love on Facebook. I think the reason for that is because because it's true and it's real. It's that people are talking directly to me. It's not managed by someone and they're just sharing photos and great, have you heard this song? Have a look at this video. You ask a question, you're going to get a reply from me. And if it's something that you want to learn about or that you don't know, I'll take the time to chat and explain it to you. And hopefully that gives something back to the people. So, yeah, it's a good thing to do.
This will be a great last thing to talk about because I'm sure it'll keep everybody till the end of the video.
The cover of the Nubreed album for Global Underground, I wore this blue jacket, which kind of became an iconic image. And a lot of people asked me about it. So here's the jacket. It's a Hugo Boss blue jacket. I still have it, and it still fits, surprisingly. And it was part of the photo shoot for the cover, which I'll just bring in. Whee!
It's such an awesome jacket.
And I'll just show you the jacket.
I just think it's so cool. It's like you think of a photo shoot and you think of like a designer coming out with like a rack of clothes and you just pick something up, but this was your thing.
Maybe if it was Prada or like a label with a model and that's different, but we're just DJs that play music and we're normal people. Well, we're all normal people. No one here is above anyone, but it's all real. What you see is what you get, and that's me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I think that makes for such a fitting cover for like such an iconic album. So that's awesome. But yeah, Anthony, thanks so much, man. This was really great. I learned so much. We're excited to get this out to your fans, and we'll talk soon, hopefully. Oh wait, before we go, like, what's going on with you? Like, what are you excited about that's going on your schedule? What are you working on? Are there live streams that we should be ready for?
We're currently still in lockdown in Australia, so I'm kind of not really able to travel until 2022. I have European and American and South American tours already booked for 2022. I've been working on music. I'm working with Jamie Stevens in the studio. We've got a couple of tracks coming up, which I haven't even titled them yet. But it looks like Salador, which is Dave Seaman's label, is going to sign them. So yeah, look, more productions in the studio. I've been doing local gigs in Melbourne when lockdown's been lifted, but looking forward to touring in 2022, and returning to some kind of a new normal as the world is now readjusting to life with COVID. So yeah, can't wait for next year and to start touring again.
Yeah, no, it sounds awesome. If we'll definitely be there if you come through to Los Angeles or really anywhere in America, we'll make the trip. Thanks so much, Anthony. Have a great rest of the day. You're a day ahead of us, but yeah, enjoy the rest of your Monday, man. I'll see ya.